Hello, good day everyone. We are the chapter 18 and our topic is all about communication, innovation, and learning. So first is we have communicating the quality strategy. So people's attitudes and behavior clearly can be influenced by communication. One only has to look at the media or advertising to understand this. So it says that when we are watching movies, it can influence our attitudes and behavior based on what movies we are watching. So just like for example, when we are watching movies that more on violent acts, the more we commit violence acts also. Especially for the children who are watching this, because children can easily adopt what they are watching in the television or movies. So next is we have total quality management will significantly change the way many organizations operate and do business. So this means this change will require direct and clear communication from the top management to all staff and employees to explain the need to focus on processes. So this means that the top management will need to communicate its staff and employees to give instruction, to give tasks in face-to-face for their employees to be guided. So that everyone will know the rules and in understanding processes and improving their performance. So the next is quality director or TQM coordinator should then assess the senior management team to prepare a directive. So this TQM coordinator is the persons who should work alongside with the management, or in short, this is the communicator of a certain management. So directive means also it is a guidelines or instruction from the senior management to meet a certain objectives. So this must be signed by all units, division or processes leaders, and distributed to everyone in the organization. So this directive, kailangan siya mag-include of first is the need for improvement of the organizations, the concept for total quality, the importance of understanding business processes, the approach that will be taken and people's rules, so that the management has a functional and organized management. So the next is individual and process groups responsibilities, which is the each works and responsibilities of the employees. So the last one is principles of measurement. It is a specific step from processes that leads to a particular outcome of the organization. So next is we have in the Larkin's excellent book Communicating Change in 1994, the authors referred to three facts regarding the best ways to communicate change to employees. So first is we have communicate directly to supervisors, which means that whenever the employees encounter a certain problem in an organization, they should directly communicate its supervisors for them to be guided and for them to have help and resolve the problem. So next is we have use face-to-face communication. So face-to-face communication, uh, you can easily give instruction for your employees and for you to know what they are reactions about the task and about your thoughts that you are acquiring to them. So next is communicate relative performance of the local work area. So which means that whenever you are working with your employees in a certain organization, you should talk or communicate to them that related to the work or that related to the organizations. Next is we have communication model. So this is how communication works. We have here the sender, and the next is this might be the information or the messages that the person wants to receive by the other person. So the in the center we have distraction or environment. This might be the channel of the communication, and the messages, and the receiver is a persons who are receiving the message. Next is we have communicating the quality messages. So the people in most organizations fall into one of four audience groups, so each with particular general attitudes towards TQM. So this part is it is about demonstrating on how these groups sees TQM. So first is we have senior management who should see TQM as an opportunity for themselves and also for the organizations. So senior management should see TQM as an opportunity, of course, for the organizations to be improved and to have progress. So in the middle managers who may see TQM as another burden without any benefits. So the supervisor sees TQM as another flavor of the period of campaign, another charter of the organizations or pakulo in our organizations. So the employees who may not care, so as long as they have jobs and get paid, that's enough for them, and they don't even think that TQM can help them to improve about their skills and strategy of working. So for the organizations not that inactive, the senior management will need to do something about that particular problem inside the organizations. So the senior managements will need to ensure that each teams of the group sees TQM as beneficial to them. So how does the senior management do that? So the senior management will need to show their employees the senior management needs to communicate its employees, give instruction, and using face-to-face communication, communicate clearly, give instruction clearly, and also senior managements will need to support its employees and staff about what are the needs of their employees. Communication, learning, education, and training. So it may be useful to consider why people learn. So some of us are asking that why we should learn, why we should study, what will happen if we want to learn, what will happen if we have learning. So there are several reasons about this question. So first is we have self-betterment. So it is something like we want to improve from ourselves, not because we are not contented from what we have, but we want to have progress, we want to improve, we have to be better from our self. So next is self-preservation. So it is a sense of self-preservation, our caution from oneself. So it is a protection from oneself from harm. So if you have a learnings, we will know how to avoid a certain obstacles that might happen in our life. So the third one is need for or to take responsibility. So just like for example, we want to finish studies, or we need to learn about a certain things for us to have a experience, for us to take responsibility. Just like for example, we need to study, we need to learn for us to cater our parents in the future. So the next one is to become properly accountable. So for us to become responsible from what we are doing in our life. So the next one is saving time or effort. So which means that it is for us to be efficient, to be effective from what we are doing. The next one is sense of achievement. So it is something like what we want to achieve from our life, what we want to achieve from ourselves. Pride of work. Taking a in our work means that we feel satisfied from what we contribute to our work or a certain job we had. So the next one is curiosity. So curiosity means we are curious about what will happen if we take that opportunity, what will happen if we have that learning. It is about curiosity, taking risk of what will happen if we have something. So next is appropriate methods of communication. So we have here the three methods of communication. So first is verbal communication. It is an oral communication, speaking with the others, using words, using face-to-face communication. It is known as verbal communication. So, written communications in the forms of notices, bulletins, information sheets, reports, email, and recommendations. So, it is something that it is a communication which is giving information through notice and information sheets, email, and recommendations. So next one is visual communication, such as posters, film, video, internet, exhibitions, demonstrations, display, and other promotional features. So some of these also call of verbal and written communication. So the next one is the education and training cycle of improvement. So as we can see that we have a cycle about training improvement. So
Ensure education and training is part of the policy. Every organization should define its policy in relation to education and training. The policy should contain principles and goals to provide a framework within which the main objectives should be translated for all areas in the organization. Large organization may find it necessary to promote a phase plan to identify this. Learning experience may be planned and operated. This policy should be communicated to all levels. Establish objectives and responsibilities for education and training. When attempting to set education and training objectives, 3 essential requirements must be met. Number 1. Senior management must ensure the learning outcomes are clarified and priorities set. And number 2, the defined education and training objectives must be realizable and attainable. And number 3 is the main objectives should be translated for all areas in the organization, or large organization may find it necessary to promote a phase plan to identify this. Establish the platform for a learning organization. All managers have responsibilities for ensuring the personnel reporting to them are properly trained and competent in their jobs. This responsibility should be written into every manager's job description. The question of whether line management requires specialized help should be answered when objectives have been defined. Specify education and training needs. The next step in the cycle is to assess and clarify specific education and training needs. Prepare education and training programs and materials. Senior management should participate in the creation of overall programs, although line managers should retain their full responsibilities for what is implemented. And they will often need to create the training programs themselves. Training programs should include the training objectives expressed in terms of the desired behavior, and the second is the actual training content, and the third is the methods to be adopted, and the fourth and final is the who is responsible for the various section of program. And also implement and monitor education and training. The effective of implementation of education and training programs demands considerable commitment and adjustment by the trainers and trainees alike. Training is a progressive process which must take into account any learning problems of the trainees. And another one is assess the results. In order to determine whether further education or training is required, management should themselves review performance when training is completed. However good the training may be, if it's not valued and built upon by managers and supervisors, its effect can be severely reduced. And then the next is review effectiveness of education and training. Senior management will require a system whereby decisions are taken regularly, fixed intervals on. I have 4 examples: the policy, the education training objectives, the education and training organization, the progress towards a learning organization. And then the next is a systematic approach to education and training for quality. The main elements of effective and systematic quality may be considered under 4 broad headings. Number 1, error, defect, problem, prevention. Number 2 is error, defect, problem reporting and analysis. Number 3 is error, defect, problem investigation. And number 4 is review. And next is starting where and for whom. Education and training needs occur at 4 levels of organizations. Number 1 is very senior management. The chief executive and his team of strategic policy makers are of primary importance. And the role of education and training here is to provide awareness and instill commitment to equality. The importance of developing real commitment must be established, and often this can only be done by a free and frank exchange of views between trainers and trainees. And then the second is middle management. The middle managers should be provided with the technical skills required to design, implement, review, and change the parts of the quality management system that will be under direct operational control. The third is first level of supervision. The first level of supervision is where the implementation of total quality is actually managed. Supervisors' training should include an explanation of the principles of TQM, a convincing exposition on the commitment to quality of the senior management, and an explanation of the quality policy means for them. And the fourth and the last is all other employees. All other employees should receive detailed training on the process and procedures relevant to their own work. Obviously, they must have appropriate technical or job training, but they must also understand the requirements of their customers. Turning education into learning. Information and knowledge are two words used very frequently in organization, often together in the content of knowledge management and information technology.
So recent researchers and writers on knowledge management have drawn attention to the distinction between explicit and tacit knowledge. So explicit knowledge, that it is a knowledge is that what we can share, what we can teach to others, and while tacit knowledge is the rest of our knowledge which cannot be communicated in words or symbols. So this tacit knowledge is what we can gain through experience. So explicit knowledge as informations. So when knowledge is made explicit by putting it into words, diagrams, or other representations, it can be typed, copied, stored, and communicated electronically. It becomes information. So the explicit knowledge as information is what we can teach, what we can acquire to everyone, what we can share, and it has a process on giving informations to others. So while tacit knowledge as information it remains intrinsic to individuals, and only they have the capacity and act effectively in its use. So the learning knowledge management cycle. So one way of thinking about learning and knowledge management is a dynamic cycle from tacit knowledge to explicit knowledge and back to tacit knowledge. So in other words, people is externalized into information, which to be useful must then be internalized by the others to become part of their knowledge. Next one is the practicalities of sharing knowledge and learning. So sharing knowledge helps us to connect to the people, perform better, and become stronger as professionals. Then the European Foundation for Quality Management Excellent Model. It is a self-assessment framework for measuring the strengths and areas for improvement of an organization's across all over its activities. So that's all for our report, the chapter 18. Thank you for listening.